Well, good Monday morning, everybody. This is Dr. Bill Williams. We're here for another episode of the Influencers Podcast, and I'm going to bring to you Trent Allan today. He's a special friend from down under. This is Australia Week in Atlanta, Georgia. We're hosting 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 Australians here in Atlanta. And I thought, what's more fitting than to bring in Mr. Trent Allan, business growth advisor, now living in San Diego. So I'm going to bring him on and say, welcome. I had my Vegemite already this morning. I'm ready to go.
It's important, it's definitely important food, it's not for everyone though. Most people that are not Australian tend to really dislike it.
I love Australia. I love Australian people. And, a lot of the connections we have between us are very similar interests around the world. So it's always fun. We love the people, the accent, the entrepreneurism, they're highly entrepreneurial. You guys.
There's a few of us. Yeah.
Yeah. The ones that get out. But hey, I would love to have a lot of sharing today because you're a successful entrepreneur. You've done a lot of things. And our audience is mostly entrepreneurs from around the world. What can you tell us today? I didn't purposely put your business in here because you do so many things. So let's find out what happened, where you were, and how'd you get started to be successful as you are.
Well, I mean, it depends how far back we want to go. But I was born in a family like the best mum and dad in the world. That's why I see them. I've got two siblings. I was a middle child, but we grew up in a country town, a very small country town in Australia. So really it started from, I don't know, I think we were all born with different things, right? No two kids are the same, and we all have different desires and what we want. So the advice I'll provide really is based on, me and what I wanted to, but everyone's different. But that's the way that I'll kind of tell it. But I knew from a very young age that I wanted to do big things. We were taken down to Sydney, which is a major city within Australia. And I was about 6 or 7 at the time. And I saw the big buildings, the big skyscrapers outside the car. And as soon as I saw those buildings, I knew this is where I needed to be. So from the get-go, I felt like I needed to achieve things in this life. That's the kind of DNA that was inside me. That was the drive that was inside me. And so, I then got an opportunity. My family was able to put one of us in boarding school. My older brother was given the opportunity to go, but he kind of didn't want it. He was happy where he was at the school we're at in Dubbo, where I was born. And I was given the opportunity to take it, and I took it. I said, that's me, I want to do it. So at 13 years old, I went and was sent down to Sydney to go to boarding school at a school called Scots College. And I completed my high school diploma there. That was one of the most important things that happened to me because it allowed me to really explore what I wanted. It pushed me. I felt like I grew up very, very quickly when I did that because I was putting myself in a difficult position. I could have stayed at home. I could have, had things a little bit easier, but I chose the hard path for myself. And that was going down and doing something a little bit more challenging. So that's where it kind of started. I went to school, I completed my diploma there. And from there, it was just about figuring out what I wanted and then going and getting it, just doing my very best to, one, understand what did I want to do? And then two, how do I be the absolute best at what I do? One thing my dad always taught me was to be the best at what you do. He said, it doesn't matter what you do, but what you choose to do it the best. Like put everything you've got into it. Don't ever pick up a task and just try and do it, just a little bit or 50% of the way. So if you're going to do something, do it properly. And that was the mantra that was instilled in me as a little kid. Like, okay, cool. So if I'm going to pick up a shovel and move leaves, I need to do it at 100% properly. And I think that's one of the attributes that has got me to where I am today, just really putting 100% effort into everything that I do and really pushing to be the absolute best at what I can do. And this is not just building companies. It's not just doing the grand things that people know about. It's not, solving big world problems. I'm talking about things like your bed. Like, how well do you make your bed? Do you get up and do a scrappy job at it? Or do you get up and say, you know what? I'm not going to spend more time than I need, but I'm going to make sure this bed is properly made before I leave it. And that can be saying for the way that you dress yourself, the way that you prepare for work, the way that you get up on time, the way that you do the things that you say you're going to do, right? Like it all comes back to that, because if we want to do big things in this world, we can't do them if we don't do the little things well. and the little things are the things that I think are so important. You know, you look at someone, they drive a car, the car's not clean, the car's got rubbish and stuff inside it. That is a representation of that person's life, whether they like to believe it or not. That what you see in that car and the state of that car, you'll see replicated throughout that person's life, because it's a little thing, and the little things make up the big thing. So that, you know, I could talk for hours about like the way that I feel, the way that I work, what I do, but hopefully that's a good starting point for like how I kind of got to where I am today.
Thanks for sharing that. You know, you had a big vision as a little guy, and you moved upwards continually. And I know from your resume on LinkedIn, you go through and you see business after business after business that you started. You sold some, you got rid of some, you moved on. Did you ever have a failure story that kind of propelled you beyond because you learned something important?
I do. So one of my digital agencies, so this is probably it was the second business that I officially owned. The first one I started the second one I started when I was just in my early 20s was a digital agency. I sold that agency after about 3 years and then started a new one. It was very successful. We had at one point 17 staff. We were growing. We were working with some of the largest corporations in Australia. We're an e-commerce development company, so we built e-commerce websites, and we were doing really well. You know, we were growing. It was beyond my wildest dreams to see what I'd created in this business and just how well we're doing. But me being me, a young a risk taker, wanting to really push things, I started to look for other opportunities. I said, you know what, I'm going to use this business that I've created to then try and invest in other companies and do other things. And that led me down a few paths. It led me to invest in a microbrewery in Australia, or co-found a microbrewery within Australia, which actually went very, very well for me. And so that was one of the things that I did. But another thing that I did was I became a co-founder of a startup which was a social e-commerce tool. It was actually called Olio. That was the name of the business. But the more important details are that we had initial success with that business. We were invited to pitch at a kind of a pitch conference in Sydney. We won or were selected as part of a small group and invited to go over to the US to live for 3 months in San Francisco. We're going to be mentored by an Australian mentor over there. And so I did that. I thought, hey, this is awesome, right? This experience is awesome. I'm going to go and do it. But it really caused my business to suffer. The agency that I'd worked so hard building didn't run as well when I was over there. And because of the time and effort that I was placing into this new startup, I really lost my way with my business. We lost clients. We lost some key staff. Things just weren't going that well because I didn't have the structure in place. I didn't have it set up in a way that I could just take myself out of the business and let it run. You know, I tried to do it. I put someone in charge that I trusted, and he did an amazing job. His name is Leo. Leo knows who he is. He did an amazing job for me, but I just didn't have the structure in place. And what that led to is a very painful few years for me, because I went to San Francisco. We lived there, we worked there, and that's an experience I'll never regret taking because I learned so much from it. But in any event, I came back to Australia. My business was failing. Again, staff were leaving. We lost another key contract. And I ended up having to shut that business down, and not just shut it down, but liquidate it. And so after liquidating that business, I, was in a ton of debt. Like I'd racked up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And I was in my 20s at this point in time, right? So this was a really kind of rude awakening for me of what actually can happen. And, I worked out the worst things that could possibly happen. And this was the worst thing that could happen. And it happened. I was broke. I was getting called daily from people chasing me for money. It was something that I would never wish on anybody. I was I had a problem, a big problem, didn't know what to do. I felt alone. I was at this point in time working from where I was living in my bedroom because I had no more staff. I had no more company. We liquidated the business. I owed, credit card companies money. I owed a few different businesses money, right? And it was just too much for me to handle. Like at one point I just broke down thinking, how am I going to get myself out of this? And at one point I actually Googled how to go bankrupt or what to do when you go bankrupt. And it was at that point in time I realized I'd kind of hit an all low. And I said to myself, Trent, what do you need to do? And so I figured a plan. I said, I'm going to freelance. I'm going to just try and get work in the door and do it the best that I can and try and repay this debt. And I did. I was able to claw myself out of that hole. I was able to pay back some of the debt, make it more reasonable, get the debt moved to one place where I could pay the debt off at a lower interest rate. And I did it. I paid back all the debt. And then I was able to then go on. I went back and got a full-time job. And I was able to get myself out of that hole, go from someone in hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to someone in no debt. So the reason I tell that story is because I really failed. I did, but I wouldn't take that away. Like that was such an important lesson for me at such a young age because I went through it. I went through taking high risks and becoming broke from it, right? I saw the repercussion of what can happen if you go too far and you can't come back from it. I was there, I saw it, I felt it, but being able to fight my way out of it, being able to figure out what was going on, get a plan and get out of it, I knew that I can do anything. I was like, Trent, if you can do that, man, you can basically do whatever you want because what's the worst that will happen again? You go broke again, right? But you've been there, so you can get out of it. So I wouldn't suggest anyone does that, goes and thinks, oh, I should just fail so I can get the experience. But I think everyone should know out there, if you really want something, you can get it. It just depends on how badly you want it, right? So that's why I bring that up. I just think it was such a big, I learned so much from it at such a young age. And that's why it was one of the things that I always look back and say, you know what, I learned a ton from that because of what I was able to do based on where I found myself.
So taking your lesson and applying it to other people, you learn that expansion too fast, keeping your eye off the ball, not on the ball, leads you to let some things drift into the failure zone.
Yeah.
What would you say are other people's reasons for failing that you've seen now that you've been in business for quite a while?
Other people's business. So I think one is they just don't start, right? And to me, that's a failure. Like you've got an idea of what you want to do. You've got an idea to do something, but you just never get started. That's probably the number one reason why people fail because they just never got it off the ground. So I think that's more people than you think, right? We have so many great ideas from people that just never see the light of day because they just never have the means or the want or the courage to go and start the business or do the idea. So I say that's one. Another one is, I just think the desire to want it, right? Like to achieve great things in this life, to achieve anything of greatness, you have to really want the vision. You have to really, really want it. You have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? And what is the consequence if I don't do what I'm going to do? So for me, that's a big driver. And it comes back to your why. Like, why are you doing it? Like, is this business that you're starting something that you must build, something that you must absolutely see through? Or is it something you just kind of like, oh, that sounds like a business I could start, right? Because things are going to get really, really difficult at points in time. Multiple times this will happen. The world will feel like it's upside down. Like you'll feel like, what's going on? Why is this happening? So your why and your reason for being in business and wanting to do it needs to be really strong, because if it's not, you're going to fail. That's just the truth. And that's what I've seen time and time again, that the reason is just not strong enough. If I think about another one, I would say there's that saying, you don't know what you don't know. And I think we all have some of that in us. Sometimes we just don't know things. And I think entrepreneurs, business owners need to figure out what they don't know and realize that they don't know a lot. We all don't know some things. We tend to think that we know everything, that, hey, we're experienced, we've got this, we've got that. But I often say, don't always believe what you think, right? Because you're going to be proved wrong at that point in time. So I see some business owners that are courageous enough to look for help, courageous enough to go out and continue education and look for ways to improve. But you've got to evolve as a business owner. You've got to look for ways to continuously improve yourself. How do you improve your ability to work deeply, avoid distraction, find a strategy and vision and work towards that? You've got to constantly evolve yourself, and you've got to constantly evolve your team and your business. So if you don't disrupt yourself, someone will disrupt you. You see that time and time again in business. And so I think that often failure comes because the business owner just is not willing enough to risk things, is not willing enough to realize that they don't know everything, seek the help that they need, and constantly evolve their business and look for ways to constantly improve the offering to customers, as well as constantly improve their offering to themselves and how well they perform day in, day out.
Sounds like a good list of 3. I think failure to launch. You can't even start if you don't, get up to bat.
Yep.
Not having a big enough why. Yeah, it's the motivator, the driver. And you got to have knowledge. I see a lot of people who start off trying to do a business that aren't experts in an area. And that's one of the biggest areas of failure is you don't know what you don't know. Perfect analogy. And that's why you should hire experts to guide you. You have mentors all the way.
They can help. They can definitely help.
What about your motivation now? What is your internal motivation to keep going?
I don't know if I've intentionally used this as my motivation, but what motivates me is what will happen if I don't do what I want. So I look at a life where we're struggling for money, my family. We're living in a place that doesn't make me happy, that's not surrounded by the things that I want. I've got stress from what's going on in the family. We can't afford to give our kids good schooling, right? That's my nightmare. And I've articulated that it's so clearly in my mind that that's what drives me. I think, Trent, if you don't do what you are setting out to do, that's the life that awaits you, right? So do you want that life? Because if you don't, you need to go out and get it. Because unless you go out and get it, that's what's waiting for you. So I use that as my driver. That's what motivates me. What will possibly happen if I don't get up at the time I say I'm going to get up? Give 100% to everything I do during the day. Like I said, from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed, and really work to be a better decision maker, figure out what's ahead for me, looking at the year ahead, the 5 years ahead, the 10 years ahead, like where am I headed? What do I need to do? What are the decisions I need to make today? Like they're all the things that I'm constantly looking at in order to make sure I get there. But back to motivation, it's just that, Dr. Bill, it's, that's what's waiting for you. And that scares the life out of me. So that's my motivation. That's what I use.
I agree with what you're saying. I can not say that I judge people, but when I offer West Coasties the chance to be on my podcast and I give them a time slot that they can do it, nobody chooses 7:00 in the morning to start, but you did. So that gives me an idea that you're, motivated to get done whatever it takes. And so kudos to you and a few others that did choose the 7:00 hour. Most would rather sleep in as long as possible and take the best session that we do every day. So tell me some success secrets. What can you teach us that others can model from?
I think I can't really touch on this, but success means a lot to a lot of different people. I think success, if you can do what you say you're going to do and look after people around you and not be so selfish, but look after people, I think that is success. To me, that's success. Success is not the Ferrari. It's not the, billions of dollars in the bank account, because money is one portion of life. It's an important portion of life, but it's just one. If you don't have your health, if you're sick and you got $1 billion, I'm sure they would give up that $1 billion for their health back, right? So money is just one part from it. So I just want to set the stage that when I think about success, it's not just money. It is money, but it's also other things. It's family, health, progress. It's a bunch of things. So in order to be successful, I think you have to define what success means for you, because it's different for everybody. So I would suggest first taking a step back and saying, what do I want from my life? Like, what does my perfect life look like? Do I want a family? What type of house do I want to live in? Like, what are the things that I can do on a yearly basis? How many holidays do I want to take? And then how happy do I want my family to be? What type of schooling or education do I want for my kids? Because that to you may be success. And then the reason that's so important is because that model of success for you, whatever that model may be, requires different things. A different person may have a different model of success, and that requires different things, but yours also requires different things. So let's talk about the money, right? The money that's required to deliver your successful life probably is less than what you are thinking it needs to be. So I think first define what success means for you will allow you to, one, have a better chance of achieving it, but also know when you achieved it. Because if you don't define, without the target, you can't get there, right? That's why we set targets in business, because you've got a landing pattern where you're going to get to, and when you get there. And then I think once you've defined it, it's a hard question, right? Because I think there's so many different things. I think the number one is really wanting it. I'll give an example of where a company I started my career at, and something that I started doing there that I really applied to everything that I did. So I got a job at a company called Netcom. It's an Australian networking company. I was placed in the basement, right? So it wasn't up in the nice office where everything was, and this was actually my first real job. And I was down in the basement repairing routers, and all I had to do was, routers would be mailed in that were broken. I had to test it, I had to flash it, and if it worked after flashing it, I had to then post it back to the customer. Really basic job, right? And I wanted to be a software developer, and I was a software developer. That's where I started my career. But this was my preamp to becoming a software developer, being in the tech space and doing something that I didn't want to do, right? This didn't motivate me. It didn't get me up in the morning going, oh, I can't wait to get to work, right? Like, it wasn't that at all. But I said to myself, Trent, if you can't do this simple job well, you're not going to be able to do anything else well in your life. Forget trying to be a programmer. Forget trying to do anything else. What can you do here that amazes people? So I said, well, okay, what about the rate at which I get the modems fixed? What about that? Okay, so I set myself a target. I said, I'm going to get as many of these fixed per day as I possibly can. So every day I'd rock up to work, I'd get the modem in, I'd stack them up. I developed a process for how many would I collect before I started it? Did I get a modem and run through the entire process at once, or did I get multiple modems and stage them through a process? So I worked out what was more efficient for me. How could I get my target? My target was modems repaired per day. So that was my KPI. And this wasn't, no manager gave this to me. My boss didn't give this to me. This was me giving it to me, right? So I had to figure out, Trent, this is up to you, man. This life is yours. Like, no one's going to do it for you. So you go out and get it. So I started repairing modems, started going through the process, and I wasn't there for that long, maybe 6 months. And after about 2 months of being there, I had my boss come down and give me a letter. And I said, okay, so have a read of that letter. I opened up the letter, and it was a letter from a customer that had written in, and it was about a page long, and she was over the moon with how quick it took for her to get her modem replaced. If I can remember it, she sent it in on like a Tuesday, and she had it back by Friday. And the division, the company had never seen that feedback from a customer. And it was a result of the work that I was doing. I didn't care about anything else but my process. I just said, Trent, you've got a KPI, and that is how many you can repair in a day. That's all you need to focus on. You don't need to worry about this. You don't need to worry about what's going on there. You don't need to worry about this, but just focus on that. And that letter motivated me. I then continued to do it. And I believe I was one of their best repairers, right? I left that job to go get a software development job, but that was I bring that up because that's what everybody needs to do. I don't care if you're a cleaner, if you are starting a small business, if you're entrepreneur, if you're a CEO of a large, corporation, how do you apply that to your day? How do you, one, work out what your KPIs are? What are the most important things for you? And how do you get up every day and go and get that and just overachieve on it, over and achieve on it, over and achieve on it? Because that's what gets success in my point of view. I think that there's a few more, but I think I'll just stay on that, Dr. Bill, because I think that's just so important. And I feel like a lot of people miss that. How bad do you want it? Right? Because if you want it that bad, if you know what the consequence is if you don't go and get it, then you should be motivated to go and get it, right? You should want to go and do it.
Well, I think you really hit a real nail on the head. People that are watching currently, this is being broadcast live, of course, all over. We're getting messages that they like your message and down to earth suggestions for success. So you did hit the right nail on the head. Quickly talk about your company motto. We'll go through a lightning round of questions. What company are you going to highlight today?
Got a few. I'll touch on a startup that I'm building. It's called FX1. We've got a few different mottos at FX1, but we are a sports betting company looking to really change the way that sports betting is thought about and executed on. So we believe about sports, we believe about engagement in sports, and we believe about changing the way people think about sports through gaming and through betting. So that's the one thing. Another thing is my advisory work. So I'm a coach, or that I don't really call myself a coach. I do advisory work. I work with clients one-on-one. I sit on a board. So that's my other part of it. Because after building multiple companies, after going through, building a company, selling it, failing, I started to figure out, I kind of know what it takes to build a business. Yeah, and there are different businesses. There's B2B, B2C, there's retail, there's service-based. But I've done a number of them. I built a microbrewery. I helped build an appliance store. I built a fintech company, like prepaid Visa cards. So I've spanned industries. I've spanned customer bases. But what I brought to all of that is my love for technology and how I use technology to solve a problem. So come back to the motto of my advisory. It's really to help business owners achieve their goals. That's what I'm there to do. I take on a client, I figure out what's stopping them from growing, and I do my absolute best. I prepare, I go over and above to make sure that I can help that client move forward.
Well, I can see why somebody would want you on their board or in advisory position. Vast experience translates into avoiding the minefields of a new startup or an existing business. You've seen the minefields, you can read them.
Yep.
So that would be your talent. That's why somebody should buy from you and hire you, I'm sure. Who's your ideal client?
It's a business owner that wants success. There are some people with all my skills and all my ability to do good at what I do. There are some business owners that won't work because they don't want it. They're not willing to do the things that are going to get them success. They're not willing to do the things that they may not like to do. They want to stay in their comfort zone. They think they want it, but they're not actually willing to go and do the work. So that's not my ideal client. My ideal client is someone that wants it. An entrepreneur that, one, is humble enough to know they don't know everything, really wants success. They want what they say they want. They're willing to do what they know they need to do, and they're willing to change. So that's what they need. They need a growth mindset. And what is a growth mindset? For me, it means the willingness to change and the willingness to know that you don't know everything, or the knowledge that you don't know everything, and the willingness to actually go out there and get it. That's what a growth mindset is. So I think the ideal client, they have a growth mindset. They want the result they're after.
So you don't want to hire Trent if you want a yes man.
Yeah, definitely not a yes man.
What is your ideal client? How do you find them? I mean,
I do post on social. I post on LinkedIn, but that's more so because I have something to say. When I don't have anything to say, I don't post. But when I do have things to say, I will post. It's really just doing a great job. Like, through most of the businesses I've created, especially the service-based businesses, the best marketing is your customer talking about you. That's the best marketing you'll ever get. So in terms of how I find my client, it's really just doing, how do I do, for the clients I have, how do I do such a good job that they, one, will never leave me, and two, will naturally talk about me. There are definitely things I can do to encourage them to talk about me. But I think the bread and the butter is just doing an amazing job for them, because they'll talk about you, they'll tell people about you, and the word will spread.
Word of mouth is the most ideal of all, and it's the cheapest marketing you'll ever do anyway.
Correct. It's the best marketing you'll ever do.
What's your well-defined product that you offer or service?
It's getting you, the business owner, to do what you know you need to do, but you won't do. That's my service. You think about big companies, they usually have boards. They have a board of directors. And if you don't know much about boards or boards of directors, or you've never had one in your company, the reason they exist for these large corporations is because, one, they have the money to set up a board, and there's that much money being generated that it's of that importance. But what the board provides is accountability. They provide to the business owner, the CEO, the founder that's at the very top. They give that someone the accountability that they need to go out and get the results. So they help steer them, they help guide them, they help ensure that they can as well motivate them to go out and get the result that they need to get, keep them on track. That's really what I provide. I provide that accountability, I provide that direction, and I help provide the motivation to go out and do those things, because I'll call you out on it. I'm not gonna sit here and just go, oh, okay, you didn't get it done. If you tell me you're gonna do something, I'm gonna hold you accountable to doing that because you told me you're gonna do it. So that's what I bring. I bring that oomph to the business. I bring that accountability, and I bring that direction, knowing that I can steer the business owner in the direction they need to go and make sure they go out and absolutely get it.
That sounds like a winning proposition, particularly on a board position, where it's not just go along with what the CEO or the president of a company thinks, but actually give him direction and guidance.
Yeah, and that takes courage, right? It's easy to be the yes man. It's easy to say, oh no, I agree with that. But if you believe in what you think, you've got to say something. And I would encourage that to anyone that's in a job, in a meeting, and someone says something and you would disagree with it, or you've got a thought, like, speak up. Don't be worried about what they're going to think about you, because in most cases, you're going to actually be rewarded for it. Someone's going to go, oh, that person had the courage to say that. That was a really good point. So we have to be willing to be wrong, because if you always want to be right in this world, you're going to go nowhere. You're not going to achieve anything. Be willing to be wrong, be willing to make bets, and be willing to put yourself out there. Be vulnerable.
I guess the board position would be either strategic and see where the company's going and give advice, but also to be an oversight to prevent loss and fraud and other situations to harm the company. You try to be both plus and minus in that position, right?
Yep. Correct.
Tell us what you're grateful for today, Trent.
I've got 2 legs, 2 arms. I'm healthy. I got a family, a beautiful family. I got a wife. I got a beautiful daughter. That's where it starts, right? Because if I don't have that, I don't have anything. So I'm grateful for everything. You know, living in the US, it was always my dream to move here. I got a beautiful family that we're so lucky to have. I've got work that I love. I've got clients that I love working with. I've got opportunities that are abundance of opportunities ahead of me. I look at, you know, I just turned 40. I look at, I've got 20, 30 years of really great opportunities and work moving forward, right? I'm so excited. I wake up motivated, you know, and I work for that. I meditate twice a day. I journal every day. I really work on my mindset. I work on the way that I think and my attitude. So it doesn't just come naturally. I work on these things, but appreciation is a big thing. If you're not appreciative of where you are or what you have, you're not going to be happy. And I think we should all be working to be a little bit more appreciative. So, but that's what it is.
Sounds good. 40 years old and where you are, where you've been is a good place to be. I'll share with you too, Trent. I started over at age 48.
Yeah. Okay.
And my second business was 4 times more successful than my first successful business.
Yeah, that's
And now
great.
I'm starting over at age 70. At age 70, I've started my third business.
That's great. That is
So
awesome. You inspire me.
the next business will be the best. Yeah. How do you start your day? You got up early today. Is that normal?
Yeah, I got up at 4:30 a.m. this morning. I'm usually up around 5, but sometimes lately I've been getting up at 4:30. So I journal. The first thing I do when I wake up is I read out my affirmations. I have a book of affirmations of what I want to achieve in my future, and I read out those affirmations every day. I then journal. I use a book called the 5-Minute Journal. Well, that's what I'm using at the moment. I fill that out. Then I will go and meditate. So I do TM meditation, which is like a 20-minute twice a day meditation. So I'll go and meditate. And once I meditate, I have breakfast, have a shower, and then I'm really starting my day. So when I start my day, I know what I'm doing. I use a technique called time blocking, which means that I have already scheduled my day a day ahead. And so if it's a Monday, it means that on the Sunday I schedule it. If it's a Tuesday, it means on the Monday I schedule it. It's probably the last thing I do before the day closes. So I wake up, and once I've eaten my breakfast, I've gotten ready for the day. I either travel to work or work from home. And then I just will look at my schedule, and I know what I'm doing exactly every moment of that day, right? Because I've already figured it out. And what I'm doing is based on what I need to do, what is going to get me to my end goal. What's my vision? What's my objectives for the month, quarter, year? And all these things that I'm doing today is really leading towards that. So that's how I start the day, though. It's a process. It's doing the same things. It's getting ready for the day and getting my mind ready for the day.
What do you do? How do you feel if you don't achieve your goal that you set every day?
I'm okay with it. As long as I know that I gave it my best, then I'm okay with it, because I know that we're not perfect. We're not machines that can go out there and just knock it out of the park every day. And some days don't go perfect. Some days you don't have energy that you did on the Monday or the Tuesday. Some days you're a bit off. And so I think it's not about whether you hit your distinct goal or not. It's more about, did you give it 100%? Did you really give this everything you've got? And then as long as you're doing that, I think you're going to get close to or achieve your goal every day. But you shouldn't worry too much about that. More worry about, did you give everything you've got? If you have multiple days or weeks where you feel like you're giving it everything you've got, but you're not achieving your goal, it's probably time to sit back and review your goal and figure out, well, there's got to be a reason for this. There's got to be a reason why I'm trying so hard but not achieving it. But I would say that don't worry or stress too much. We're not perfect, and yeah, we all have flaws.
Looking back at your life, if you had to give your advice to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell Trent to do?
Not to stress so much, not to worry about things. I would tell him that you're going to be fine. Just learn as much as you can possibly learn, because hindsight's a beautiful thing, and we don't have forever in this life. We all going to die at some point in time. We all are going to die. And so I think I would just suggest to him, hey, just do your best. Figure out what you want. Take some risks, but don't take too many risks. Make sure they're calculated risks. But go out, have fun, enjoy, and learn as much as you can. I would also tell him to put myself in the most difficult situations that I could. That's where I've learned the most. Like, I've, gone and got jobs that were too big for me. I've gone and started companies when people said, don't start it. Even my dad in my early age was a bit wary of how eager I was to start a business so early. So I've had people tell me, oh, this is too big. And I would say that if you are taking a job or starting a business where you feel that this is a comfortable, good place to start from, that's not what you should be doing. Everything should give you a little bit of anxiety, because if it doesn't, if you don't think it's a little bit too far from you, it's not big enough. You should push yourself a little bit farther. So I tell him to go out and put yourself in the most difficult situations, because that's the way that you're going to learn the most. Don't go for the safe bet, go for the hard bet.
It's good advice. I've been there, done that. I understand stretch is important.
Yeah, it is.
When you're all looking back on your life, you're said and done, you don't feel like you want to do anymore. What do you want to be remembered for?
For someone that did the things they said they're going to do, someone that could be relied on, a friend that they knew, if I'm going to be there at a certain time or I'll do this for you, that he did it. He was there. He always delivered on his promises. That's ultimately what I want to be remembered for. The business success, the money, the achievements, meh. Like that's that. I love that stuff. I'm driven to go and get it. But I think I want to be remembered for someone that built and developed a great, loving family that raised really good kids, and someone that was there for their friends, their family, someone that really looked after those in my circle and really worked to make sure that they had everything they need, and I was someone they could trust. Because I think without that trust, without that, we all know people in our lives that don't say what they're going to do. They're a bit, you can't trust them. They don't call you back. So I think that for me is the number one. How do you deliver on your promises? How do you give this life everything you've got? And how do you make sure that you rise up everyone that's around you, everyone that you're in contact with, no matter if that's the cleaner, the receptionist, your wife, your kids, doesn't matter. Lift up everyone around you, because that will come back to you in abundance.
Yeah, listening to all that, Trent, it's easy for others to see why we like Aussies so much. They do have a real grounded life. Most of them do have a picture of life that family first and success comes from that angle, not from just monetary success.
Yeah.
How can we support you, and how can we reach you if we want to do business?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's the number one platform that I use in terms of social reach. So just search for Trent Allan on LinkedIn. My last name is Allan, but just search for me that way and you'll find me. You can find me from this post. But yeah, reach out if you got a question or a comment or feedback. I'd love to hear from you.
Is yours Trent Allan spelled with Allen or An?
An. It's okay. It's like I used to I played a lot of sport. I'm very active, and I used to win a lot of trophies in sport, and almost every trophy has it spelled as En. So it's commonly spelled as En. So don't feel too bad about that at all. It's a bit of a weird spelling for the name. Yeah.
Trent Allen is not correct. So it's An. Well, thanks for correcting that.
That's okay. I don't take any offense to it. It's totally fine.
Other than a spelling bee we've had, how was your experience on the guests of the show today?
Yeah, it's been great talking to you. It's gone really, really quick. I enjoyed answering the questions. I enjoyed the conversation. I feel like I could talk for a lot longer. I'm enjoying it. That's why. So, and not every guest podcast or that I've been on has been the same. Some of them aren't like this. So I've enjoyed it, and it's been great. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, we like to get the background of the person more than the business, and this has been exactly that. Knowing you better and exploring your storehouse of wisdom, that's really valuable to us. I want to give you the final word to our audience before I come back and say hello again and close out the show.
Whoever you are, whatever you're doing, just know that you are definitely, most certainly better than what you think you are. You think you're here, but you're probably here. You just don't know it yet. So give yourself a little bit more credit. Know that you can achieve more than you think that you can achieve. And once you know that, you're gonna be more successful. You're gonna know that I've got the backing to do this. If I'm better than what I think I am better than what I think I am. And it's going to give you the confidence to go out there and get to that next stage.
I like it. You're basically telling people out there you are a winner already. You just need to start believing it, acting it, and you definitely win in the world. So thanks for that. And I want to share with you guys how else you can be a winner. You can capture your freedom by checking out my QR code. That QR code is going to lead you to my digital business card on Ovu, and that's where it goes if you look for the particular address. And I'd like to focus on two things on that business card. I do a lot of things just like Trent does, But the Influencer Podcast, we highlight that, and how to reach me, how to become a guest on the podcast is there. And you can also find out about our AI technology and all the things we do. Our Trim is a QR code builder. It's a link shortener and a link tracker all in one. And for superior tracking, we've got O-Tracker, which tracks all the visits to websites. And our flagship product is O-Connect, which was a digital platform for video conferencing. Special thing going on right now at GTech in Dubai is that we are highlighting and bringing out O-Connect to the world as a very special product, something that translates any language as you speak in real time. And so that's going to be a big hit around the world. And I look forward to sharing that with all of the people that are listening today. We'll be doing O-Connects within a short time and replacing other video platforms that we use. So, Trent, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Excellent job of representing Australia, of yourself, your family, and your business acumen is very well recognized by all of us. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. This is Dr. Williams signing off on the Influencer Podcast with Trent Allan, Allan. We'll talk to you on another episode in a short time. Have a good day.